fabulous brother educators.
And Happy New Year, everybody.
Good morning, everyone.
Where were you on the night of July 31st, 19th? No.
Well, I can't guarantee there'll be all of us together, right? But maybe. Hello, everyone. Welcome to At Your Side Virtually. I'm Angela Wolf. I'm a Brother Brand Ambassador. And today I have a surprise for you. So, usually Emily comes this week, but she had to do something at school. And when Jennifer was on last week doing the ScanNCut, my email box blew up with how exciting it was to see all of this cutting with fabric and all the cool things on the ScanNCut. So I said, hey, Jennifer, any chance you can come back? And so she's here. So say hi, say where you're from. We are live on the Brothers Sews Crafting and Sewing YouTube and Facebook page. And I see you all. Happy Tuesday. Sunny kind of Southwest Michigan. So let's bring Jennifer up. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
Good. How are you, Angela?
Oh, I was so glad you could come back because it was so fresh in our minds from last week's show. And you had so much more to share. And we could have gone for like 3 hours, but I'm so glad you could come back. Everyone loved that episode.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. I do love my ScanNCut, so I could probably talk about it for 3 hours.
So I saw Jennifer pop in and I said, look, we even coordinated our colors today.
Just have ScanNCut vibes or something going on.
Definitely. So last week, for those that missed it, you can go back and watch that show on their YouTube channel, their Facebook channel, either or. And Jennifer gave so many tips for cutting fabric, which is a big thing. So many of you say, can you do it? And she gave a lot of tips for that. Well, she has more. So what are you going to share with us today, Jennifer?
Well, I didn't get to everything I wanted to last Thursday. And so I left everything set up, and I kind of wanted to show, I think there were some questions last week on cutting fabric with a Fusible on it. So I wanted to show that because I highlighted the fabric mat, which you don't need to put anything on your fabric but some starch. So I thought I'd show Fusible. I thought I'd show how to use some of the 1,400 plus built-in designs that you can just incorporate right into your quilting. And then I thought I'd show how you can take a pattern or a drawing or something and scan it right into the ScanNCut, being our ScanNCut has that awesome scanner. And you can turn anything into a cut file to use in your quilting, or if you're a scrapbooker, you can use it in your scrapbooking. So I thought I'd kind of play with those three parts of the ScanNCut.
I think this is going to be fantastic. I can see everybody saying last week was awesome. So wait till you see. She just gave me a little preview of all the little pieces that she has going. So this is going to be great. And if you end up joining in late, you can always go back and replay. Or if you have to leave for lunch, you can go back and watch the replay for the end. So welcome, everyone.
So I thought since we left off with the fabric mat last week, we would start back with the fabric mat. So we have with our ScanNCut, I'm going to be working with the ScanNCut 230D, which is the Disney machine. I'm a Disney girl. You can see Minnie Mouse up there. So I'm all about the Disney. So I've got the Disney machine, and it actually comes with an auto blade that's just for fabric. It's got a tan top to it. And we recently introduced a mat. We've normally had a standard mat, a low tack mat, and then a fabric support sheet that you would put on. I usually put it on the low tack mat because I don't do a lot of card making. And since I'm a quilter, the fabric support sheet would help support my fabric when I cut it. Well, now we have a fabric mat, and our fabric mat matches our fabric blade. So I'm sorry, it's backwards in front of me. So
no, you're forward on this side. I love that those match, though. It's so easy to know which one goes with which.
So easy to know. If you're using this mat, you use this blade. And again, it's only for fabric. So fabric that you've starched, that's it. Nothing with Fusible. So it dawned on me last time after I finished that I do a lot of quilting, and I love little pieces. I mean, that's what us quilters do, right? People tease us that we cut perfectly good fabric up into little tiny pieces and we sew it back together. But it's what we love. So I do a lot of patterns that call for lots of little pieces, and the current pattern that I'm working on calls for a huge amount of 1-inch squares. So normally I would cut with my rotary cutter, and I thought, I have a ScanNCut. I can cut all those hundreds of 1-inch squares with my ScanNCut using the built-in patterns in my ScanNCut. I don't need a rotary cutter. So I was going to show you how we can take the 1-inch, we can cut 1-inch squares, 2-inch squares, triangles, whatever you need, and have them pre-cut for your quilting. So that's where I was going to start, if that's okay.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful.
So I have, now I still only have the one camera, so I have it set up on the screen of the ScanNCut. You can go back and watch last week where I show how to put this on the mat. So I don't know if I need to change my camera for that. So I've got my mat right here down in front of me. And I'm just going to take this black piece of fabric. And because I'm just cutting squares, I don't have to worry that my fabric is right side up or right side down because they're just squares. I'm going to put it on my fabric just down in the middle, and I'm going to use my ScanNCut tool. I have our brayer here. It's a roller. I'm going to make sure that my fabric is nicely adhered to the mat.
And while she's putting that on the mat, again, she showed last week how if you have issues with your mats, things like that, that's in an older video. So because of the one camera, we're just going to keep focusing on the machine. But there's a ton of videos to show you that.
Yes. And I'm happy to answer questions. I just thought instead of back and forth, we ran out of time last time, so we don't want to run out of time again. So I am going to load this, and I will change my camera so you can see me loading this.
Okay. While she's changing that, I can see some of your comments. I see somebody just bought a ScanNCut. Congratulations. And Judy, thank you for filling in some of those answers. You were totally correct on those. So Judy Romano, thank you. All right, she's back. Jennifer, let's see, bring you back up here. There you go. You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Here's my ScanNCut. Try to get as much of the screen as I can. I'm going to put my mat in, and I'm going to, over here on the side, it's kind of hard to see. You've got your home button. This is your mat load and unload button. I'm going to touch that and load my mat.
Hey, Jennifer, just real quick for this one, somebody was just asking, and I think I'm going to answer correctly, but I'll just double check. You're using the fabric mat on this one, right?
I am. I am using just the fabric mat because I'm just using fabric, and it's pre-starched fabric.
Pre-starched. That answers your question there, Jane. That is, sprayed it with starch, and she's talked a lot about that in the last video. So go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you. Keep rolling.
And now I'm going to put that fabric blade in that we talked about with the tan top. Just going to pop it into the blade holder. And I'm going to select pattern. And I'm going to go into the first category here, which are all shapes. So it's squares to be the first one. And when I go into that, it asks me, how big do you want your square? And I can cut that however big I want, up to 12 inches wide. I've got my 12 by 12 mat, so I wouldn't be able to cut on this mat more than 12 by 12, but I need 1-inch squares. So I am going to just size this all the way down. It goes pretty fast.
The little beeps.
One by one. So you can see the little tiny square there in the center of the screen, and I'm going to hit set. And you can see it automatically puts it up in the top. I'm going to go to edit, and then I'm going to go to object edit. You can see that it's put a red box around my square. I don't know if you can actually see that there's a red box.
Yeah, we can see that.
There's a red box. And I'm going to go to object edit. And then this, again, I talked about the last video. This is our size if we need to change the size. But this button, I can tell my ScanNCut how many of that design I want. So let's say I want to cut, just for time purposes, I'm going to cut 6 of them. Now it's popped 6 on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hit OK. And before I move them, I'm going to hit OK one more time. And I am going to scan my mat so that I can see where my fabric is. So I'm going to hit this button here in the center. That's my scanning button. I'm going to hit start. I do want to mention again, my microphone is behind my ScanNCut. So
Still quiet though.
Now, I'm using black fabric. It's very dark. I can't really see what I'm doing. I have some tools right here in this little wrench. I can go in here and I can lighten my background. So it's on dark. I'm going to choose light and I'm going to hit OK. Now I can still see where my fabric is, but it's much easier to place my cut files. So I can take these.
Oh, now we can see them really good.
Now, if I was doing this on my own, I would be much more careful about my positioning because I don't like to waste fabric. But for demo purposes, I want to show you just how neat this is. So I have positioned all 6 of my squares on my piece of fabric. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to choose please select. I'm going to choose cut. And the ScanNCut, the DX models, this is the 230D, as I said, we have the auto blade. So I don't have to worry about setting in or dialing in my settings of my depth or my pressure for my blade. My machine is smarter than I am. It's going to take a measurement itself and it will know how deep to cut exactly through my fabric. So I'm not even going to do a test cut. I'm going to trust my machine. I'm going to hit start. It takes a measurement of how thick my mat is compared to how my material, and then it will start to cut.
That is very quiet. And just so those of you watching, there is a little bit of a lag in the internet. So if you see that, it's happening. So it just could be because it's in the middle of the afternoon. Who knows?
Who knows? Tells you finished. I'm okay. And then I'm going to unload my mat using the same button that we loaded the mat in. And then I'm going to come back on screen and show you the mat. So I'm going to switch cameras.
Okay. And while we're waiting for her to come back, Dolly, yes, there is a playbook for the ScanNCut. Cindy Hogan wrote it. It's a great book. I have it here, actually. A ton of great projects. So you'd really like that. Just call your brother dealer for that. I think they can actually ship that one, too. All right, just waiting for her to come back. Here she is. Hey, Jennifer.
Hello. So it's on my fabric is on my mat. And I'm going to use when you're doing things like this, I don't know about you in your sewing room, but if your tools always grow legs and walk away.
Ask the Fashion Sewing Club every live show. It's like everything disappears.
Yes. So I always take the background fabric off. Here's my fabric I just pulled from my mat. And I've got my 6 squares there.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
And the really nice thing is I've starched this fabric. So when I sew these little pieces together, they're not going to stretch on me on the bias because I've starched them and they're cut perfect. So kind of makes the piecing even easier.
I love that.
So it's a pattern that has tons of little pieces. Take advantage of your ScanNCut. It may take you a little while to cut everything out, but you've got to cut it anyway. And this way it's nice and perfect and ready to piece.
Oh, that's awesome. Very easy to do. I could think of a lot of applications for those little boxes too, besides just quilting. A lot of times when I'm just piecing together fabrics and stuff like that.
Exactly. So that was the first thing that I wanted to cover was incorporating it into a pattern, you know, other than an applique. You can still use your
So Marcia has a question. Can you have the boxes touching or will that mess it up? I mean, like if you just had them all lined up in a row.
I believe that when I showed the quilt blocks on the last video, and when it all those pieces, it looks like they're touching, but there is just a minuscule piece, you know, in between. So you don't want them touching.
That makes it.
If at all, you might risk one of your squares not being the right size.
So Joanna has a great question. Is there a way to just click an auto button where it'll automatically line them up in a row and space them? Or do you have to move them yourself?
I always move them myself, but you know, there probably is a way.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. I always add them myself too because I usually have a whole bunch of different items. So I have to check.
Into different sizes, so I don't really think about it. But you know what? Find out, and I'm going to answer that question after we finish here because that's a good question.
Perfect.
Okay, so the second thing I wanted to cover was the Fusible. People were asked about cutting with a Fusible. I use a Fusible on some items, especially if it's a wall hanging or something, that I don't worry about it being, I mean, it's not, you're not going to put it against your skin, so it's not going to be stiff. So I use the Brother Fusible product, and it comes in a little package. It's very, very lightweight. And I went ahead, you know, Easter is our next holiday, right?
That's so cute.
This little bunny on these are just some canvas flags I bought at the craft store, and I thought I could make a little pennant to hang, you know, with the bunnies. So I just wanted to show cutting the Fusible because that was on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, and also while she's going to go on to the Fusible, so she's not going to be using the fabric mat. And I saw some of you that overseas that said you don't have the fabric mat. What could you use for fabric? Well, you can do exactly what she just did on a really sticky mat. I mean, you just have to make sure your mat's really sticky. I mean, so you can still do what she just did, just not using the fabric mat, but you have to make sure you have a good, actually the fabric protect, what is it called? The fabric sheet that you put down?
Yes. I was going to show that, but I can't really show applying it on the camera, but we have, these are called, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, that's what I don't have mine close to me.
They are high-tack adhesive fabric support sheets, and they come in a pack of, let's see, how many do you get here? 4. And I will open this just so you can see what they look like. Like I said earlier, I usually, before the fabric mat, I would take these and I would put one of these on my low tack mat. I don't do a lot of paper crafting, which is where you would use your low tack mat the most. And so I take my low tack mat and one of these are 12 by 12. And they've got them all taped together here.
I used one of my mats for that, and then I left the mat just for that because you can use it over and over, and it's really sticky.
So there, I put these. There's a little instruction on how to put them. There's instructions in the package. You would lay this on your shiny side down on your low tack sheet. It's going to stick, and you would take a credit card or something, and when you pull this up, you want to make sure there's no bubbles. Once it's on your mat, though, and that's the reason I use my low tack mat. Once it's on your mat, it's on your mat. You can't take it off. It is super sticky, and it will make that mat perfect for cutting fabric. So I put it on my low tack mat, and I'm good to go for just plain fabric.
Yeah, and then you can keep covering that piece up because I'll use it for fabric. And by the way, somebody just said something about having a whole bunch where you're auto-filled. What we were saying is that when I cut things out, I have all different shapes. So I've not utilized that feature. So I'm sure it's there. But by the way, for the fabric mat, if you're not using the fabric mat and using the fabric protect sheet, I would just plan on using your mat for that because it's really sticky. I don't think I've ever even attempted to take that off, by the way, because I've just used it over and over. And then there's just put the plastic sheet over it to protect it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then that mat, even though it says low tack, you're going to be able to tell that you have this on it, and you can put a little mark in the corner or something and say that that's your fabric mat.
Yes, yes, please.
Tack mat if you need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you have another mat that maybe isn't that tacky anymore, that's a great place to utilize that as well because it'll work fine. At least mine has.
Yes, you can do that. We recommend putting it on a brand new mat, a clean mat, because if there's anything underneath it, you'll get a little bump, and you might not get as clean cuts.
That's true.
So I always put it on a brand new low tack mat, because that's the way I'm going to use the mat for my purposes. So
perfect. All right, what else do you got for us?
Let's go ahead, and I have a brand new standard mat here next to me. It hasn't been used but maybe one time. So I'm going to take, I have a piece of fabric that's prepped. Actually, I'm just going to take another piece of fabric that I had prepped.
And if I missed any of your questions, just keep rolling them in. When we take little breaks, I'll post those again.
I'm gonna save the Easter eggs for our bunny. I'm gonna show you something with the bunny. So I've got a piece of blue, just plain fabric, and I've got the Brother Fusible on the back. Now, if you are using the high tack fabric support sheet with your, that you've applied to another mat, or you're using, or if that's what you're using, you want to place this fabric side down. So you'll have to remember to mirror image your design, and I'll show you where that button is. On my standard mat, it's not as sticky as that high tack support sheet. So I'm going to actually place this with my fusible side down. And that's the way I do it. There's, 100 ways to do everything. I'm just showing you what works for me. So I'm going to put the fusible side down in the center of my mat. If you do this fusible side down on your high tack support sheet that we just talked about, it will stick and you'll never get it up. So save yourself some headache and put it fabric side down on your fusible, on your support sheet. So I've got my regular mat, my standard mat. I put fusible side down. I'm going to go back.
Could you hold that up just to show them that, Jennifer? Great.
This is my standard DX mat, brand new. I have just the blue fabric, fusible side down, and I'm just gonna show you how to cut it. You're gonna use the same steps, but now we've got some fusible on the back of our fabric. So I'm gonna switch cameras. Actually, before I switch cameras, let me tell you, we talked about this blade. This is your fabric only blade. The second blade that comes with your DX machine is your auto blade. Now they are both auto blades, but the one with the black top is for everything else that you're cutting, including fabric that has fusible on it. So I am going to put this blade in my machine because I've got fusible on the back of my fabric.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, while she's swapping cameras, hey, Donna, so the book is called ScanNCut Playbook. It's the ScanNCut Playbook. So if you just call your local brother dealer and say, do you have the ScanNCut Playbook? Written by Cindy Hogan. They'll know exactly what you're talking about. All right, she's back at her screen. Great. Let me just swap this around. There we go.
And I'm going to load my mat again, same way. I've got my auto blade in. And I am, again, lost my tools, so I'm going to use my finger. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to choose, let's see. I'm going to choose one of the Disney designs because the neat thing about the Disney designs that are built into the ScanNCut is that you can change the size of them. You can manipulate them, unlike the designs in our sewing machines. So I'm going to choose this one. And I've got a 6-inch square of fabric. So I'm going to leave it at that size for now. I'm going to hit OK. And look at what it does. It breaks up my design for me. And I can choose what pieces I want to cut. So I'm not limited to the Mickey with the floral around him. If I just want to cut the Mickey, I can just choose the Mickey and hit OK. And that's really small. But I want him bigger. So I'm going to, oops, I'm sorry. I want to set it first. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. That's so excited for Mickey Mouse. I'm going to go to Edit, Object Edit, and that same size button is there. And we can size here plus and minus, but with the new update for the ScanNCut, I can size him by a percentage. So maybe I want him 150% bigger. And I can hit OK. You can see that. I guess you can't see the Mickey there.
We can just see part of them. There we go.
Okay, I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit OK again. And this is where I'm going to scan my mat, just like we did before, because I want to make sure that I position my Mickey over the fabric. You can see the fabric on the screen. I'll show
we can see that with the Mickey really well.
Good. So I'm going to just take my Mickey and bring him over my fabric. So I know where I'm cutting. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go to Please Select. I'm going to hit Cut. There's my Mickey. Again, I'm going to trust my machine and I'm just going to hit Start. Now, because our design had, remember when we pulled up Mickey, we had the floral around him and then his head. The machine is saying, do you want to cut the other part of the pattern, the floral? I can go back here and it will take me back to this screen, and I can choose to cut the floral should I want to cut that. So I'm just going to cut the Mickey for now. I'm going to unload my mat, and then I'm going to come back to the other camera.
All right, sounds good. Well, while she's switching cameras, I see a few of you asking questions. Now, some of your questions were already covered at the beginning, so I'll just have you, when we're finished, you have to just go back and watch the replay, which is fine. There we got. So Kathy says, how did you separate them? That was one thing that you might just have to go back and rewatch how she did that. It was a button that she clicked that automatically separated them.
When you bring up the design, you mean the parts of the design?
Mm-hmm.
When you brought up the design, the machine automatically separated the parts of the design for me.
You got that, Kathy? Okay, good.
Here's
All right.
Again, with my fabric on it. I'm going to, again, I always take the surrounding fabric off first.
Oh, that's great. Michelle wants to know if you always remove the paper from the Fusible.
Yes, otherwise your paper, if I'm doing it this way, if I were to put the paper on the mat, there's a chance that the paper could, because it so easily comes off, it could shift and then my fabric would shift. So so there's my little Mickey. And, you know, I could put him on anything I want.
That's awesome.
And all I would have to do is use an iron and pop him where I want him to be.
Perfect.
Okay. Did we miss any other questions?
I don't. Donna loves your nails.
Thank you.
So some of you are asking questions about pricing and discounts and things like that. So I am a brother brand ambassador. Jennifer is a brother educator. Call your brother dealer. They're your local brother dealer, and they can fill you in on any of those things. And yes, the book is by Cindy Hogan for the playbook.
Yes, and I have it right here if you want to see what it looks like.
There you go. It's very thick, and there are a lot of projects.
You actually also get an extra font that you can put right into your, it's called.
And I'm cracking up. It's called autocorrect. You know, you just never know. I think I've gotten used to like what words are really going to come out.
I don't know about you, but I get used to, I can kind of read through the autocorrect.
I know. Hey, Jennifer, nice to see you. Is there ever a time when you put the fabric side down? Well, I think that's what you just did. I
put the fabric side up on the standard mat. If I were to apply the fabrics, the high tack fabric, I would put the fabric side down. And then the key is to mirror image your fabric, or not your fabric, your design, because your Fusible is going to be up. So you know, if you were doing, say you were doing an applique that said, you know, summer, and you didn't flip your design, then when you go to use it, your letters are going to be backwards.
Oh, so. Yeah. How do we know that? Because I've done it before. I forgot.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't see any. Everybody's saying thank you. I don't know anything about a still air playbook at this time, but thanks for asking.
Don't either. So the last thing I wanted to go over and talk about was, I've talked about using this for your, you know, the built-in quilt blocks. We've talked about applique. It reads the PES files. Talked about cutting pieces for your other quilt patterns. But what if you have something that you want to make an applique of your own? Maybe you have a drawing of your own that you want to cut out and put on a quilt or a pillow or something. How would you turn that into a quilt project? So I have got 3 different ways to do that, and I wanted to show that really quick, which is how I did the bunny rabbit. So
that sounds wonderful.
So I have a scanning mat here. And when I do something like this, I do use the scanning mat, which does not have any lines on it. It has a clear plastic cover that's attached. And this is so that you can get a nice clean image of what you're scanning so that you can turn it into a usable file for whatever it is you'd like to do with it.
Jennifer, I'm so glad you're showing that because I have had so many questions just through time. It'll come through email and I won't have, I don't have photos of this to just drop a photo in really quickly, but to show that mat, because so many people have said, well, is it the same mat? What do you use for it? And so that's great that you're showing that mat.
Scan with your, we've been scanning on our regular mats, but when I'm trying to do something and turn it into a design that I can use, I always use my scanning mat because I get a nice clean image.
Wonderful.
So I have 3 different ways to show you this, and I'm going to go through them. Hopefully I won't run out of time. I've grabbed some just black and white images off of the Brother Creative website, our creative center. There's all kinds of projects and stuff there you can make and use. So I've grabbed these hearts, and I'm going to take these hearts and I'm going to place them underneath. I've put it underneath the clear plastic. This loads the same way your other fabric mats load into your machine. So that's the first step. I'm going to load it.
As you're doing that, everyone's saying this is such a great thing when you find coloring books that have that. And yes, that's like the one thing when I go through the stores now. If I go to the bookstore, there's a whole coloring book section, and I'm always looking to see what could I use out of there.
Yes, I get that way with the sewing or the embroidery machine too, with the design center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to my machine.
Okay. Take you out. Oops, sorry, wrong one. I'll take you out till you're back. I see quite a few questions. So if there's anything that we missed, by the way, or it's something technical, or if you're looking for pricing, be sure to check with your brother dealer. All right, the screen is back.
The screen is back. So in this instance, the first step is going to be scanning. So we want to scan our image. So instead of choosing pattern, I'm going to choose scan. If you remember last time, I chose direct cut when we were cutting directly on the fabric. This, I want to scan to cut data. So I want to scan an image and turn it into data that I can use for my project. So I'm going to choose the second option here. I'm just using a black and white image. It's on a black and white recognition mode, my 12 by 12 mat. There is a 12 by 24 mat that the DX can use that you can purchase separately. There is a cutting mat as well as a 12-inch by 24-inch scanning mat. So I'm going to leave it at 24
inches. That's a lot. That's my favorite mat, by the way, because you can cut a whole sleeve, you can cut half of a leg or shorts or something like that. It depends how tall you are, right?
Yes. So for this purpose, we're going to leave it at 12 by 12. I'm going to leave it in black and white because I've just got a black and white image, and I'm going to hit start. It's going to scan my mat. And while it's doing that, I'm going to try to locate my stylus.
It's a live show. You won't find it until right when we're finished with the live show. That's how it always works.
You're probably correct. But I have a backup. So here is my scan image. You can tell with the scanning mat, I don't have any of the background that you would pick up from your regular mat, any threads or little leftover pieces of fabric. I've got a nice clean image. And I'm going to take one of these hearts that has the 3 hearts. And I want to separate them. So I am going to choose this 3rd one here, because I want all my pieces to be separate. And then I'm going to crop just around one of the hearts, the one with the 3.
We can see that great.
Good. Now I'm going to hit preview. It looks good. I can see all 3 of the hearts. So I'm going to hit OK. Now it's going to ask me where I want to save my file to go back and find it. So I can choose to save it to the machine. If I had a USB drive in, I could save it to my USB and take it to my computer, or I can send it to Canvas Workspace through my Wi-Fi connection. We're working right on the machine today, so I'm just going to have it save it to the machine. It tells me that it saved it. I'm going to hit OK. Now I can go back and choose a second heart if I want to. If you've got more than one design that you wanted to turn into a file, you can go back and crop another part of the image. But I just want to do the 1 heart for demonstration. So I'm going to go back home. Yes, go ahead and delete. Now I'm going to go to retrieve data. I'm going to go to my machine because we saved it to our machine. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to find my heart.
Jennifer, I have to laugh just because your nails look so good in that camera that I'm just thinking, I think we could cut something like that to do our nails.
I have done that.
Oh, I love it. Everybody say they love your nails. I'm sorry, you were talking about ScanNCut?
Stay on topic. I'm going to hit OK. Now, I'm going to hit Edit. And look how it broke all my hearts apart for me. I can make those any size I want. I can rotate them. And from here, you're just going to do what we have been doing. Put your fabric on the mat, scan it, position your pieces, and cut. So I've taken just a black and white image that I printed on the printer and turned it into a file that I can use. I could draw these even. If I wanted to make a card, I could take this file, open it up, and draw the hearts on the front of a greeting card. So that is one way that we can take a black and white image. So I have 2 other ways if we want to see those. What do you think, Angela?
That's awesome. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to go to the home screen. And I'm going to come back to we have 15 minutes left. So I'm going to come back to the other camera and show you my 2 other pages. And then I'm just going to stay at the other camera.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to take her down while she's switching this. And yes, you can cut cork on this machine, by the way. Yes, yes. All right, bring her that back up here.
Okay, so the next one I'm going to do is a little more detailed. So we have some Easter eggs. So if you had a page or a pattern or something you drew with overlapping images, we can break those images apart and make them separate pieces so that you can cut them separately in different habits. And then sometimes you might have an image. These are my bunnies.
Oh, I love that one.
You notice this is a pattern. Again, both of these, all three of my pages here are from the Brother Creative Center. These are bunnies that you can cut. I don't have a color printer, but if I were to print these in color, they were different colors, and you could punch little holes in the ears and put them on a bunting. But I wanted to cut it out of fabric. So I've just printed it, and I'm going to show you how we can cut this. Even though it's got the design on the inside, we can tell the ScanNCut we don't want to cut that. We just want to cut the bunny out. So those are the two other ways I want to show you on the ScanNCut.
Sounds great.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the camera, and I'm just going to go through both of those ways with us.
Those are very cute too. You can see you all saying, yes, please, don't stop. There's always the delay. Don't worry. I already had her. She kept rolling. All right. I can see you great.
All right. So I'm just going to leave my mat. I did not unload my mat. My scanning mat is still in the machine. I've taken the heart sheet out, and I'm going to put the sheet of Easter eggs down underneath the clear sheet. And I'm going to go to scan again, and I'm going to go to scan to cut. I'm going to hit start.
Brenda, you need to get that ScanNCut out of the box.
Yes, don't leave it in the box. I'll admit I did that. But once I got it out of the box, I did not stop.
I think I did too, way back when one of the first ones came out, because it was a little intimidating. But once you get going on it, you'll love it.
Yes. Okay, so remember with the hearts, I used these because we had separate pieces. This button. We're going to use this button here. Do you see how the pieces are overlapped?
Oh, yeah.
This? So our pieces here are overlapped, and we want to tell the ScanNCut, well, we want to cut all of the different shapes, even though they're overlapped. So I'm going to choose that. Okay, now if you look at the screen, do you notice that it's turned all of the lines to the dark black so we can see what would be the cut lines? So I'm going to crop my image. I'm going to choose just one egg. And I'm going to hit preview. It looks good. It looks like I caught all of the egg in my crop lines. So I'm going to hit OK. Again, it's going to ask me, where do I want to save the design? I'm going to save it to the machine. I'm going to hit OK. I could go back and maybe I wanted to do the polka dot egg too, but to save time, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to go back to retrieve data from my machine. Scroll down. Here's my egg. There it is with the swirly lines. Hit OK. Now watch. I can take my pieces from my egg and cut them individually. So even though they were overlapped, I can still use it as a file and cut them out of different colors. Questions?
That is such an awesome feature. I love that.
Cool, because you always think, well, do I have to trace all of the design, you know, parts of the design? I mean, that's the way we used to do it, right? You trace each little piece and then cut it. Well, the ScanNCut does all the hard work. And then the last icon, when we do a ScanNCut, I'm going to go back home. And now I'm going to put my bunny rabbits in. I'm going to go to scan once more. Again, we're going to scan to cut data. I'm going to hit start.
I agree. Everybody's like, this is so cool. Delia says, I got to try this. Definitely. I don't know what Louise, I see your comment that what is the latest update for the ScanNCut? You know, I don't know the number off the top of my head.
I can tell you that as soon as I'm done with this because I've updated this
Oh,
DS.
great.
Okay, so there's our bunnies. You can see on the screen.
Oops, sorry. There's the bunnies.
You can see on the screen that it's recognized everything on the mat. Well, I only want to cut my bunny shape. So I'm going to use this icon here. That's going to tell my ScanNCut, I just want like the outline of everything that's on the image. So I'm going to touch that. Look what it did. It's just grabbed the outline of all three of my bunnies.
That's perfect.
Now I can crop my bunny. I can hit preview. It looks good to me. You notice it didn't even pick up the little, and I don't know if you can see this on your screen, but there are two little white dotted lines where you would punch a hole for the to run your line through. It didn't even pick up that. It only picked up the outline of my bunny rabbit.
Wow.
I'm going to okay. I'm going to save it to the machine. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go home. Oops, I'm sorry. Retrieve data from my machine. I'm going to go find my bunny rabbit. There he is, right where I left him. I'm going to go edit. From here, I can rotate him. We've got this button here. This is your mirror image button. We've talked about that a little bit. It will flip your design for you. Maybe I want to make my bunny bigger. Right now he's 5.8 inches. Maybe I want my bunny to be 8 inches wide or 8 inches tall.
Can you move your camera to the left just a smidge? Just like a smidge. Perfect.
Oh, sorry about that. There you go.
That's
So,
okay.
I'm making him a little bigger. You know, you can make him whatever size you want. We have another button here. I can fill him in and I could draw on my fabric first. I can hit on and fill him in with some lines if I wanted. I could draw those lines before I cut it out. All kinds of possibilities. And then from here, you would just scan your fabric like we've been doing and cut out your bunny rabbit.
That's so easy. That was a great tutorial, Jennifer.
Thank you.
3 great tutorials, actually 5. And some of you are asking, now this was me that put this in, by the way, because it looks like I'm commenting from Brother, but it's the Brother ScanNCut. It's called Canvas Workspace. So if you go to canvasworkspace.brother.com, that's how you get there. There was a few other questions on here. Oh, thanks, Anne. All right, Don wants to know, can you make a PES file from the ScanNCut and cut so you can do a satin stitch around the bunny?
Yes, that is possible, but that's another episode that will take going into either the machine or the software.
Yes, but it is possible.
So the same way I just scanned those images and I saved them to the machine, if I save my scan to a USB, it saves it as an image file, not a cut file. And my Luminaire will read an image file in my design center. So I can take my JPEG into my design center and turn it into stitches.
That's awesome.
Entirely different.
There's been, in case you guys haven't watched some of the previous episodes, there's been some great tutorials on taking a design out of the embroidery machine, adding the applique around it, taking it to the ScanNCut, cutting it, working back and forth with both of those, especially with the Luminaire lately. There's been a lot of those tutorials in case you missed those.
Yes, they work very well together.
Lorraine, can you use this with other brands of sewing machines? Well, it works independently by itself. So, I mean, you can use it by itself.
Yeah, you can use it by yourself for all of your applique, but for embroidery files, it will read a PES or PHX file.
That sounds good.
Embroidery.
Am I missing any of your questions? There were so many that rolled through here, and sometimes when I scroll up, I can see your questions from YouTube and from Facebook, but sometimes they scroll up so far that they won't let me back up there.
If we have just a minute, I see a question on updating the ScanNCut.
Yeah, there it is. Arlene.
I'm going to go back to the other camera, and I'll just show you where that is.
Okay, so while we're waiting for her to come back, there you go. And then you'll know what number you need to go to.
So here's this little symbol here. Get my whole screen for you. This shows that I'm connected to my network, my Wi-Fi network up here. So I've got my network on. If I go to Tools and I scroll down, this tells me my machine number. If you ever need to know your machine number, this tells me what version of update I'm running on. I'm at 1.52. If I touch that and I hit Wi-Fi, it will look to see if there's a new update for me, and it will update. I've updated it. It's telling me I have no updates available. Now you can also do the same thing. You can go online and download the latest update. If you're not connected to Wi-Fi, you can download it to USB, and you would go into that same screen and select your USB and update from your USB.
Very easy to do. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. I get that question a lot too.
And by the way, when they do come out with the updates, you really should update your machine, because it might be adding something to it, changing if there was a little glitch that they found or anything like that. You never know what might change on it. So make sure you do those updates. Just like updating your computer.
I had a friend yesterday, just yesterday, she bought a ScanNCut 225, and I went over to help her and updated her machine because it hasn't had any of the new updates. So I showed her how to get her all updated. One of the newest updates is that percentage. When you're doing your sizing, instead of just bumping it up to whatever size, you can hit the percentage button. That's in the new update. So definitely make sure you're updated.
All right, I think we got them all. There was a lot of questions, but I think we answered most of them, except for the ones that they would have to call a brother dealer for.
Right.
I think, what was that? Yeah, you answered that one. Lynn says you've got some great information. You and Lewis, ScanNCut. Oh, this was one I missed. Amanda wanted to know, how well do you find that the ScanNCut scans with light colors? Is that what that says? With light colors for scanning.
So I do white a lot, and I can scan on the white, and you just go in and change that background to dark, and it makes it just, I mean, it's still white, but as long as you're not taking a whole 12-inch piece, you can kind of see where the outline of your white fabric would be.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
I think that was...
Lighten and darken is very helpful.
I love that part because a lot of times I'm actually using more dark fabrics, and it's really hard to see those designs when you're putting on top of there.
Yeah.
If you have never used it, if you've never done an update, does it take forever? No, it doesn't take forever. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can just download it to a USB stick.
Yeah.
Do I need all or just the latest? Just the latest, I would think. I don't think you need to like add each one.
Just whatever the latest is, download that one. And if you do it through your machine on your Wi-Fi, it will take the latest update.
Yeah. And this is an update, Heather, not an upgrade. So updates are free. So just go to brothersews.com and you can scroll through, find the ScanNCut, and that's where all of that is. Can you really use thin fabric on this mat? Yeah, Jen, you can, but you have to starch it first. You have to prep the fabric first.
You really can. On the fabric mat, you can. This fabric that I cut at the beginning of the show is just quilter's cotton starched. There's nothing else on it.
Yeah. All right. This has been a great hour. Now I see more questions rolling through, so we'll get a few more, but I think... Are the older models any more complicated? Well, the newer ones have the auto blade, which is priceless.
Yeah, easy.
Mm-hmm. But my sister still uses one of the older models, and she loves it. As long as you do a test cut on everything, you're pretty much fine. Well, I'll say that loosely.
Yeah, you'd have to, check your settings and do a test cut. I still have an older model that I love.
Mm-hmm.
But the auto blade makes things so fast and easy.
I did the happy dance when they came out with the auto blade. Not that I had any issues without it, but I did have one little mistake. But it was self-induced, not machine-induced. I did one of those.
I have to tell you, when they first did the auto blade and they had all of us educators in the room and they introduced us to it, the gasp in the room was like... down the street.
Definitely. Yes, you can, Norma. You go back and watch. We're almost finished right now, actually in about 10 seconds. And just wait about 10 seconds. And if you're on Facebook, which you are, share this to your Facebook page, and then you can always go back to see it, or go to Brother Sew's YouTube page, and then you can binge watch videos from the whole last year, actually, officially a whole year. It's been a whole year since we started the live shows, which is amazing.
Amazing.
Oh, everyone say that's a lot of information. I agree, Jen. So Ibby, the original one didn't have Wi-Fi, so just use a USB stick, which, sometimes I forget that I have the Wi-Fi and I'll go download it to a USB stick, even for my sewing machines too. And I'll think, okay, come on, get with the program, Ange. Definitely. Thank you. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. This was like a duo.
I'm glad to help.
Yes, and even better, so now when you guys go back to watch the video right before this one was the one that she showed last week. So in case you missed that, 2 great tutorials for the ScanNCut and fabrics. So Jennifer, cannot wait to see you again. And this was wonderful. Everyone, thank you for joining us. And so you probably want the schedule for the week. So Jennifer, I've been working on this cute little top back here for a sew-along. Isn't this fun?
That's cute.
It's going to be a little sweater set. So that's tomorrow. We have our Rachel twin set sew-along. And then Thursday, we have another brother educator joining us at noon. So I can hardly wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then today, speaking of Cindy Hogan, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is her software shut-in. So you don't want to miss that show. So Jennifer, if I don't see you for a couple of weeks, Have a great Easter, but hopefully I see you before then. But if not, I cannot wait to have you back.
Oh, me too. It's so much fun.
Everyone's saying thank you, thank you. Oh, it's great to see you. Hey, Lisa. I always wait a few seconds because all the questions roll in at the end, but it's all thank yous and thank you for a great show. That's wonderful. And next time we got to do our nails because yours look great. All right, everyone. Have a great day. See you later.
Bye.